Yeah, the item system in Pokemon Unite is kinda cool, but even though there's 16 items, some Pokemon struggle to find 3 good items, whereas other Pokemon, they just like hyper synergize and do way too well with the items that we already have. Then there's items like Rocky Helmet that are completely useless and already need a rework or something. So let's talk about items that could be added into Pokemon Unite, because the cool thing about Pokemon is that there's just tons of existing items, and we've already seen a lot of just classic and traditional items pulled from the games, or pulled from the main series, and then put into Pokemon Unite. Also worth noting that you can just make stuff up too. Buddy Barrier, Energy Amplifier, Aeos Cookie. If we need to fill a niche, we can just make stuff up, and that works out pretty well for Pokemon Unite. So this video was inspired by a super chat I got on a recent live stream. Here's a tip, because I got a paycheck, so thank you very much for your money, Luxray fan. And thoughts on if they add Eviolite. Same effect as the game, 1.5 times defenses, but becomes useless when you evolve. Now, on the surface, that just sounds absolutely bonkers broken. But the weird thing about defensive scaling in Pokemon Unite is that it's not like League of Legends, to where if you manage to get 100 defense, you're already knocking off like 50% of the damage an opponent can do. 400 defense is roughly 21% damage reduction, so if you're taking a Pokemon that has 200 defense, especially because it's unevolved, so it's not even going to have crazy stats, and then you give it 50% more, you're only getting like couple percent damage reduction. We can look at this little chart right here. So let's say we go from 200, which is roughly I guess that's 12% damage reduction, so it's like 88% or something, and then that cuts it down to 84%. So yeah, we're getting like 4% damage reduction from an item, and that's not like a crazy amount, and like health could scale a little better as well. So it's not really too crazy, and through a lot of hard work and testing, we've been able to find out more and more values about the game. I'm on unite-db.com. You can find a description down below. I usually link it whenever I'm on this website and using it to like show off things or figure out numbers or whatever. However, if we look at this, alright, we got level 7, 149 defense, 112 special defense. Like, maybe we bring Assault Vest or Focus Bam. That's not really going to change the numbers too much. So even adding 50% to this isn't going to give us an insane amount of durability. So we're going from roughly 9% damage reduction to 12% damage reduction, maybe 13% or something like that. So yeah, again, it's not a crazy number, which is like, yeah, Eviolite, I think would actually have to be like double the defenses. And then that means like as a Gibble, as a Gabite, maybe even as a Fletchinder, your ganks could be a lot more powerful. And you have to remember, you're giving up some kind of other crazy item. Are you giving up crit? Are you giving up a 14 or actually 15% bonus health shield on special attacks, which are pretty much guaranteed to eat throughout a fight anyways? So like some of the items have to be really scary sounding, but they're actually not super scary in practice. Like, if anything, Eviolite just need to be like flat 25% damage reduction while you're not fully evolved, because this item is going to turn off in the late game, but that's when you turn on some Pokemon like Garchomp. Cinderace doesn't want it, you know, it's going to be more for the evolving Bruisery Pokemon. I don't even know if Machamp wants it, because, like, level 5 submission's pretty strong anyways, so it's going to be for, like, the hyper late game Pokemon. Also, as more evolutions come into the game, that'd be a thing, but it'd be actually pretty nice. Like, yeah, Gibble just takes 25% less damage. That seems balanced. You're also giving up some kind of item trade-off. So, yeah, Eviolite would be kind of interesting. I think the language on it would have to be very specific as well, because some people just don't understand, like, well, Eviolite Pikachu would be busted. Eviolite Pikachu doesn't work because Pikachu doesn't evolve in the game. And just give it like flat 200, 250 health. That way it just also has that usefulness, also multiplying and amplifying your reduction power. But yeah, Eviolite is a pretty good idea, a good place to start for a video like this. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with friends, and comment your thoughts as to items you would like to see in the game. Now, I know people are already talking like, yo, what if we got choice items? I don't want to see this, and I think it would be weird, because I've seen like a lot of things pitched about it, like, oh, if you have Choice Band, let's just say Choice Band also works like Choice Specs, just all of your damage is flat increased by 30%, even 50%, but let's think about that. Now, this is where the interactions get weird, because some Pokemon, they have like roughly the same damage on both of their abilities, like Cramorant. You're not going to want to use Surf to get 50% more damage, where it's like more damage to get a Surf and a Hurricane on opponents plus CC. So, Choice Band or Choice Item wouldn't really do much on Cramorant. Then there's Pokemon like Greninja, where you actually have to make a meaningful decision to give up your evasion or your escape utility, like your utility move, but then Surf with 50% more damage. That could actually guarantee an execute into a reset and then scale pretty crazily, but I don't think the numbers make a lot of sense on it. it'd be kind of weird and hard to balance, and then like you have to like think about this for every Pokemon, even at 30% more damage. But then like, yeah, would it even be picked at 30% more damage? Because I'd rather have my spoke screen so I can get out, and then I'm just getting more utility out of that than the 30% damage and only having access to one move. Maybe Venusaur would use it because Sludge Bomb and Giga Drain, they're just worthless. So stacking into Solar Beam, yeah, that'd be pretty crazy, but then does that just break Venusaur too much? And also, what about for laning? I think it complicates the game to just like lock yourself into an ability or lock yourself in or out in some kind of way for massive damage amp that you can't really find on any other items. That's another thing to take into consideration. Like, some of these items sound really crazy, but at the end of the day, they're also not super ridiculous. Like, okay, how much health do we get back? 2% a second after being out of combat for 8 seconds, and the game's only 10 minutes long. And there's a base HP recovery of 9 when Pokemon have thousands of hit points. That doesn't really come together. And then like, yes, so like choosing the right items for balance can be kind of weird. Life Orb is another item that I've been seeing people talk about, and I think it can find a way in, but again, the numbers would have to be very rigorously tested to the point where it might not even be worth making the item. So I'm thinking 10% bonus damage, like you just deal 10% more damage, but you also receive 10% of the damage you deal. And that could also be weird, and maybe the passive turns off at like 25% hit points. So like, just Life Orb doesn't exist when you're below 25% hit points, so you don't accidentally KO yourself. And then that does seem balanced, because like, let's say you're Gengar, and then you go in on Life Orb, so you're going from like 2200 damage on a Hex to 24-ish, like 2400 plus damage, and then you're taking 240, which is going to be a good chunk of your hit points. So it's not like, yeah, you're just flat taking 10% of your health, or you're flat dealing 10% more of their health or something. But I think there is like an opportunity here. However, I don't want to see like crazy damagey scaling items, because once again, kind of doesn't work with some of the other items that we see and just like the power inside of some of the passives. Big Root, another item I don't want to see, because this could be your easy lifesteal item that you heal for X amount of damage from auto attacks or X amount of damage that you deal. But I think that's way too hard to balance, because I think Garchomp got nerfed from the beta. Garchomp, I believe, was healing way more and even doing a bit more damage as well, and that just made it a 1v5 monster. But I mean, how fun would the game be if Garchomp was able to just heal for any amount more? Not fun. Same thing with Zeraora. If Zeraora got to heal for any amount more from like its auto attacks or something, while being tanky, while also if it's healing or shielding from discharge and soaking damage again. No, dude, don't. Also, other Pokemon like Cinderace, now it also gets... I think like Lifesteal just does not work, or Spell Vamp has a really hard time working inside this game. And then what does that mean for Shelbel? Shelbel is already a useless item. Like, you heal 75 hit points. It does scale with special attack, like Venusaur with all special attack items heals for 250, but it's on a 10-second cooldown. Actually, we can... Like, it doesn't fit on the screen, but yeah, like, it's on a 10-second cooldown. So the devs want to give you a decent amount of special attack, some cooldown reduction, but then only 250 bonus hit points per second in healing. You're just better off with tank items, so Shelbel's worthless, but if there was a way to add persistent healing on auto attacks, then you're getting an absurd amount of value, and some Pokemon just hyper synergize with it, which is what you want. Some Pokemon are just going to synergize better with items, and that could make or break the Pokemon itself, but then you don't want to make it to where it's like overwhelming, and I think you can't have Big Root, can't have Choice Band, probably can't even have Life Orb, and King's Rock. RNG is already wacky in this game. Like, Scope Lens is stupid, where it's like, oh yeah, just a 4 to 6% chance your game's over because Absol ganks and gets that 4 to 6% chance. Just do weird amounts of extra damage, and then you're just instantly dead. Or, if you're Absol and you get unlucky, and then you don't crit and you get blown up, well, now your game's over because you're behind on a hyper-scaling assassin character. So, I think that the RNG in this game is a little too weird, little too rough for me, unless the devs want to make it a wacky, fun game that is lesser in competitive. Even if we have an esport, maybe they want to just play around with random mechanics inside of it. So King's Rock could be like 5% chance on auto attack to stun the opponent for half a second, or 5% chance when using an ability or dealing damage to stun the opponent. Technically fun item, technically worth something picking up. Adds a lot of RNG to the game, could definitely turn some fights into a coin flip, but I think that'd be a compelling item idea. So I mean, if that's the direction, where if we get more like weird critty items or more weird RNG effect chances inside the game, King's Rock could work, and it's an interesting niche little pick that I think could be kind of fun to have. But overall, like, I wanted to do this section, like this next section of items that people have suggested that make sense, that already exist in Pokemon, that could just fit in, but I don't want to see because I don't think they could be balanced that well. So now let's get into some other cool ideas. Flame Orb. I would like it if every time you deal damage, like there was an item that just had like a base burn inside of it. And Flame Orb would be super cool. Like that just works. You equip Flame Orb. I don't know what kind of stats it could give you. Maybe also we could experiment with items that don't give any stats and they're just a passive. It's like Flame Orb is whenever damaging an opposing Pokemon, do 1% of their maximum health per second over 3 seconds. So it kind of lines up with Muscle Band because like you're doing auto attacks maybe once every second. Some Pokemon definitely speed up. There's also attack speed increases inside the game and stuff. But it's also remaining hit points. If we just had flat 1% hit points, that puts us in like Leandre's territory. And that item works in League of Legends, and even though it's like a mythic, but we've also had like Leandre's in the past and all these other weird things, it's like, yeah, just 4% target's maximum health over 4 seconds, touch of other scaling, maybe it also scales with like a weird mixture of your attack and special attack, it's whenever you deal damage, and it's also not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it could be cool for like laning, dreadnought fights, maybe something meaningful around like a game or something, because we can pull up Garchomp again. So I mean, like, Pokemon just randomly get thousands of health. I believe Alola Ninetales ends up around like 6,200 if they don't have Buddy Barriers, so like 7,000. So I mean, like 7,000 health, 1%, extra 70 damage a second isn't super crazy. So I think you could get away with it, but like over the course of the game, like, yeah, if a Pokemon just doesn't have a better thing and you're trying to play for poke or you're trying to play around it, that could work, and maybe even get away with like 1.5% over 3 seconds or 1% over 4 seconds. And then like some tank, it'll also be a nice little tank burner item where it's like, okay, now Snorlax is just taking 100. Don't know how it like interacts with defenses as well. So I mean, like, yeah, even with the defenses, now it's even less. Same thing on Muscle Band. It's like, well, 3% bonus damage actually turns out to not be a lot if the Pokemon has 500 defense, and then that cuts off like 30%, so it gets closer to 2% remaining hit points, and that does a lot of weird things. But I would like to see Flame Orb get some kind of integration or something like that, just kind of see items like other items. Rylies, this is one that I was thinking would be interesting, but also just too strong of a passive to always have, where it's like, it just gives you some kind of stats, but makes it to where whenever you deal damage or whenever you land an ability on the opponent, it slows them for a small amount. Like, you can't have a heavy slow just baked into every single ability for choosing an item at the beginning of the game. So that's where it gets weird. Like, I don't think this would balance, but it's kind of a cool idea. However, it's like, yeah, what if you just make it to where just slow, and then you can land extra abilities or you get extra utility inside of it. Cool. I don't know what kind of item you could like represent with that, like Icy Rock. I don't know, just something weird, because there's not one-to-one representations for all these items. Like a Assault Rocket Helmet are similar. Some of the other ones, like, oh, attack specs. That's how you scale into higher special attacking damage. Focus Band, not quite, but makes sense. Like, a lot of things just make sense. So you can just splash in whatever item, give it a sensical effect, and it still kind of works. So seeing something like this would be cool. But again, I find it hard to balance. Like, the more I think about items that could be added into the game, or item archetypes from other MOBAs and like trying to fit it in, like, you just start with these. So you don't have to buy them, but you are just gated and you can't like power spike any harder, and some of them don't have like a lot of crazy effects. Which is why Buddy Bear is like one of the best items in the game. 40% health. That's always good. It's like 80% health because you're giving it to an ally. Nothing gives as many hit points as Buddy Bear does flat. So, like, it's just a very strong item that scales the entire time of the game, whereas attack weight drops off pretty significantly. Scopeland's always scales, but it's RNG. Muscle Band, I feel, kind of drops off depending on the Pokemon, too. Even though it does have, like, scaling remaining hit points, still not a crazy amount. It's like some of these items are just bad and don't really find time to work out in the end, like Shelbel. Nah, that just doesn't work. So it's like, yeah, the actual item balance, like, surprisingly good, with a nice little variety and some interesting choices borrowing from the main series. So the more you think about it, the harder it gets to like come up with some of these items. Eject Pack. Here was something I was playing around with. Like, what if there is an item, 60-second cooldown? That sounds about fair. If you fall below 10% hit points, it just sends you back to base. That seems like it kind of fits in with the wackiness of Pokemon Unite, and I don't think it breaks the game, because if this is at like a Zapdos fight, it's better than dying and burning like a 20-30 second cooldown. Now, it's at the Zapdos fight, or the Dreadnought fight, or maybe it happens in lane and it kind of screws you over in like kind of a weird way because you could have just fallen back for Citrus Berries on a clutch survival. A lot of weird things can happen off of this, but then, like, if your team falls back, if you just come in and you try to snipe Zapdos, it can work. And again, you're giving up other passives, you're giving up other items, so it can play into a specific playstyle, or also just be a safety net item that might just be worth it. Instead of giving up experience, giving up a death, having a longer death timer, that could be a thing. I believe there was like something from the beta or the data mine that one of the battle items, I'm not talking about battle items in this video, but one of the battle items like just instantly revived you but had like a 2 or 3 minute cooldown, so you don't even get to use it that often. It was like League of Legends Revive. I think that's kind of balanced. I'd actually like to see that as a battle item, but Eject Pack's kind of a soft idea behind that, and it could have its benefits and drawbacks, and it's something you'd really have to be very smart about, where it's like, well, if I overcommit into this, my Eject Pack is up, and if I don't do what I need to do and I get popped too early, I don't die, but I could have done damage at 5% hit points when they use all their burst. So that could be an interesting kind of item. Razor Claw. I was already talking about Scopelins. I think Razor Claw would be interesting to add into the game to really balance out crit, where it's like, this gives 5% critical chance, maybe more. And also, Razor Claw is like a claw. That's an offensive item. So maybe it does something where it adds like 4 attack at level 10, 8 attack at level 20, 12 attack at level 30, so it's not like a lot, but there is stats kind of baked into it that makes sense. And then at level 1, 10, and 20, it's like 3, 6, 9% crit chance or something to help it to where Scopelins isn't just like a complete coin flip and also having to get to level 30 to get the most out of that crit chance or something weird like that. And maybe you can also balance the items around. You knock off a couple of percent on crit chance on Scopelins, and then you can also just kind of tune it into Razor Claw. So if like 6% at level 30 is kind of pushing the limit, well, you introduce Razor Claw and then you say, hey, your build is all crit now, and then if you want to have like a 15% chance, or actually, yeah, 15% crit baked in throughout the entirety of the game, that feels less coin flip. That feels more deliberate. You're giving up 2 item slots to get something like that. I think that makes a lot more sense on the Razor Claw. And even if you have like a level 20 Scopelins and level 20 Razor Claw, that's still like 13% crit chance, and it feels alright. And it's not like, oh, that's just BS 4% chance, because there's no way they have a level 6 Scopelins when a random Pokemon just runs in and crits you on a strange ability or something. So I'd like to see that ability, because like in League of Legends, you build crit items and you are deliberately going as a crit AD carry. With this, it just doesn't make sense, and crit in general doesn't make a lot of sense on the game. You could also just tune down Scopelins, make the Razor Claw passive like, yeah, 2, 4, 6, and then you cap at 10%, and then you just have 10% the entire game. Feels a lot less BS than whatever Scopelins is giving you, and you also have to knock off an item, so there could be balance around that. I don't know. I just think that more crit items definitely needed. And they exist in the game, so we can add in a Razor Claw. Protective pads, like I was talking about, the defensive scaling, kind of weird, kind of doesn't make sense. I think Buddy Bearer needs a nerf before we actually get into really any kind of item balance or item theory. But like, what if protective pads just take 10% less damage? Like, not even stats. Like, that'd be cool. Like I said with Flame Orb, just experimenting with items that don't even give stats, they're just a raw passive, 10% less damage. So it has like a very high defensive representation, but you don't get anything else out of it. It sounds like a lot, it sounds like a scary number, but you have a 14% shield on the Assault Vest for your health, and then you also have 40% from Buddy Barrier. Now, stacking all those could get a little scary, and like Snorlax having to chunk away another 1,000 hit points off of a 10k health Snorlax, who already has some defenses baked in. Alright, but again, Snorlax has to give up something for that, so that balances out in a different way. Focus Band also has a lot of healing. I mean, like, Protective Pads would be fun to experiment with this, where like, just have to do 600 more damage to a Ninetales. Kind of fair. And then because it maybe needs some level scaling, just give it like 10, 20, 30 defenses, maybe even like 5, 10, 15, because you're already overloading the defenses on the passive itself. Maybe a small amount of hit points or something. But yeah, like, Protective Pads would be interesting. That'd be kind of fun and cool to see, where it's like, oh yeah, no one ever used this item in the main series games. Remember, it exists, and it would also make sense if you just have flat damage reduction, and it doesn't hurt too much, because like some of the other tank items are already kind of wacky, and if I can get 2% of my max health from being out of combat or 10% max health from being out of combat for 5 seconds, or 5 seconds on top of the 8, you know, like a lot of these things can kind of come together, and I think it'd be kind of weird, 10% from Score Shield. So, Protective Pads, like, just flat. I've wanted to see something like that in Pokemon. It's just like, just flat damage reduction. Figure it out. Quick Claw. I think Quick Claw would be really cool to like kind of rework how it would work inside Pokemon Unite, because one thing in the game that's kind of weird is cooldown reduction. 4.5% at max. 4.5% at max. 9% total. when most abilities are like 6 seconds. So it's like, you get a half second knocked off, which can matter in fights. But you have to run both of those, and then it gets kind of weird. So having a more dedicated cooldown reduction item, just give Quick Claw like 3, 6, 10%, so level 1, 10, 20 passive. Or if it's not going to be a cooldown inside of the upgrade passive, then 10, 20, 30, 4, 8, 12, 4% on that level 20 to 30 though. That's actually really significant because that's making up a big gap compared to Shelbel and Energy Amplifier. So that's going to be like a thing with like new items coming out, having them all be level 30 is kind of weird. I really like the strength of the item being baked into level 20 because that's very achievable. So with the Quick Claw, I think that should be like just a very cooldown focused item for all kinds of characters. Or maybe it goes like 369 on 10, 20, 30, and then the 110, 20 level passive could be like every time you land an auto attack, there's a 20% chance to reduce your cooldowns by half a second. So it could be crazy. That means auto attackers get to use it, but it even means like Pokemon like Venusaur would want to thread in those autos and try to reduce Solar Beam just a bit more and get that little bit of extra cooldown reduction. So I think because Quick is in the name of Quick Claw, it would more be like a clever usage of this item to make it a cooldown focused item. It's like Shelbel just randomly has that with its healing passive. So just kind of like keep finding ways of just reworking existing items into the Pokemon, like into Pokemon Unite from the main series game, and then like kind of making it clever in that way where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then if you go Energy Amp, Shelbel, Quick Claw, 20% cooldown reduction, that's significant, but League of Legends allows 40 to now 50%, even 60% in like the most extreme cases with the ability haste, and you have to like go lean into that super hard. So for the more supportive abilities, like, hey, would Ninetales want the Quick Claw for the Aurora Veil? Maybe give up something for that, and then just play around passives and extra ability casts while sacrificing like potential damage or tankiness. I think that could create something compelling. Greninja, if like Greninja Surf Smokescreen though, it doesn't really like it just uses those, so then it doesn't care if it comes back up in a fight too much. Cinderace, it just really wants to be an auto attacker, but it's getting a lot of auto attacks out there, so turning that into an extra Pyro Ball, into an extra feint, maybe inside of a team fight, that'd be an interesting argument. Or it just means like supportive Pokemon, now they're all CD and that's what they want to play for. Or also Pokemon that have resets built into their kit, they can get a little bit extra out of it on the Quick Claw or something like that. But as it stands, like that's all I've got. You know, again, comment down below would be pretty big, but mostly the devs have done a good enough job, minus Buddy Barrier. And like Floatstone also kind of being unique, and EXP share, wait, that's a battle item? It is now in Pokemon Unite. So I actually trust the devs to just like do it as long as they just introduce items in the game. They can borrow it from the main series. They could just make up new things that fit inside the game. I think it's going to take a little bit more time, like more Pokemon coming out, balancing Zapdos, Dreadnought, kind of figuring out where they're landing off of the survey, because they want feedback on the game. So however, like game feedback, Pokemon, and balance lands, as long as they like just tune items around that and then introduce new items kind of in that light, I trust the devs. I honestly trust the devs to come up with something. But I think some cool ideas would be like a burn item, maybe a slow item, not going too crazy on some of the other weird things inside Pokemon, maybe keeping open like some clever and balancy kind of ideas that just work inside the game, or also just unique stuff where it's like, yeah, that's actually pretty neat. You know, maybe this has a use if you're reducing a significant amount for a very brief amount, well, not a brief amount of the game, but some kind of amount of the game, and then it just becomes useless, but then you're guard chomps, so hey, if you're not as behind because of Eviolite, it paid off. And then it competes with Muscle Band and Buddy Barrier and Focus Band and Scopelins and some of these other items. So there we go, guys. This is a video that people have been wanting to see. I really liked the Eviolite idea, and that was more the inspiration to just finally go out and make this video. But honestly, a really tough video to make because, yeah, I could power fantasy this all I want. I could make up very broken items, but then like all these other items become useless, and then it's kind of a silly video. But I think there is some kind of discussion here where it's like, yeah, I want to see items expand and open up for sure. Just kind of tricky with how the current item system is. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.